Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into some really common beliefs about exercise, sleep, health, stuff we hear all the time,
Yeah, and we've gone deep into a conversation with Harvard's Professor Daniel Lieberman. He's an expert in human evolutionary biology, evolutionary medicine.
right? And some of his perspectives.
Yeah,
Genuinely surprising.
definitely. So, our goal here is pretty simple. Boil down the key takeaways from Professor Lieberman's work, give you a clear idea of what actually matters for your health without, getting lost in all the jargon.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We're using a YouTube transcript of him talking. Think of us as, well, as your guides, pulling out the really crucial bits from his evolutionary angle on health habits.
sounds good.
Okay, let's jump right in. First big one, exercise and weight loss. The go-to thought for losing weight is often, okay, time to hit the gym.
Right. And Professor Lieberman has a really interesting take here. Exercise, loads of health benefits, no question. But if the main goal is dropping serious weight, those lower doses, like the standard 150 minutes of walking a week, he says they aren't super effective for that specific goal.
Okay, so 150 minutes isn't the magic bullet for fat loss then? What does work, according to him?
Well, he clarifies that higher amounts, maybe 300 minutes a week or even more, can help with weight loss. But it's gradual. It's not a quick fix.
Right.
Where exercise really shines, in his view, is stopping you from gaining weight in the first place, and maybe even more importantly, helping you keep weight off after you've lost it through diet changes.
Okay, so it's more about maintenance and prevention.
Precisely. So for weight loss itself, exercise is like your long-term partner for keeping it off, not necessarily the main tool to shed the pounds initially.
Got it. He mentioned some studies too, right? Like Pleasman in Boston.
Yeah, exactly. That was a great example. They all lost weight on a diet, right?
Uh-huh.
But the ones who added exercise, they were way better at keeping that weight off over time, even when, their eating maybe slipped a bit. And then there's the whole biggest loser thing. He points out that most participants, sadly, regain the weight,
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
but the ones who didn't, they were the ones who kept up a consistent exercise routine. It just hammers home how vital exercise is for keeping weight stable long term.
Really powerful point. Okay, let's switch gears. What about this phrase, sitting is the new smoking?
Oh,
Sounds pretty serious.
it does, doesn't it? And Professor Lieberman offers, well, a more nuanced view. It's quite fascinating, actually. His research using sensors on hunter-gatherers and farmers.
Actual sensors, wow.
It showed they actually sit for about the same amount of time each day as people in Western countries.
Wait, really? So if they sit just as much, then what's the problem with our sitting?
The key difference is how we sit. We tend to sit for these long, unbroken stretches, right? Hours at a desk, then maybe hours on the sofa.
Guilty.
Whereas hunter-gatherers, farmers, they break it up constantly. Every 10, maybe 15 minutes, they're up and doing something. Evolutionarily speaking, our bodies just aren't built for hours and hours of stillness. That's a pretty new thing for humans.
So it's not sitting itself, but sitting without moving for ages.
Exactly. Interrupting that sitting frequently, that's what seems to be beneficial. It does good things at a cellular level, helps with blood sugar control, even activates certain genes.
Like nudging your system awake every so often.
Yeah, precisely. Keeps things ticking over.
Okay, let's talk sleep. The 8-hour rule. It's practically gospel.
It really is, isn't it? But again, Professor Lieberman's evolutionary medicine perspective challenges this. His colleagues studied groups without electricity, without all the modern stuff we blame for messing up our sleep.
Right, like phones, screens.
Exactly. And these groups, they tend to sleep about 6 to 7 hours a night. And interestingly, they don't really nap much either.
Huh. 6 to 7, that feels quite different from what we're always told.
It is. And when you look at the big health data, sleep duration often shows this U-shaped curve,
Yeah.
meaning too little sleep is linked to problems, but also, surprisingly, too much sleep can be linked to problems too.
It's okay.
And the bottom of that U, the point associated with the best health outcomes for most adults, it seems to land right around 7 hours.
So 7 might be closer to an optimal average.
It looks that way for many people. Of course, individual needs vary, but that rigid 8-hour mandate, probably a bit of a myth.
Good to know. Now, 10,000 steps a day. My watch yells at me about this all the time.
Yeah, that number is everywhere. But its origin story is, well, less scientific than you'd think.
Oh.
It basically came from the name of a Japanese pedometer back in the 60s around the Tokyo Olympics, Manpokai, which translates sort of like 10,000 steps meter.
You're kidding. So it was marketing, not based on health research.
Not initially, no, it just sounded good.
Wow.
Now, Lieberman does point out that hunter-gatherers, they do walk a lot, 10,000, even up to 18,000 steps isn't unusual for them.
Okay, so they move a lot.
But research on health benefits specifically, it suggests that many of the big advantages we get from walking tend to plateau or level off somewhere around 7,000 to 8,000 steps a day.
Ah, so the biggest bang for your buck might be around 7, 8K.
Seems like it. So 10,000 steps. It's a decent goal, sure, nothing wrong with it. But it's not some perfectly calculated, magical, scientific number.
Got it. Okay, let's move to a heavier topic. This idea that certain diseases, high blood pressure, cancer, Alzheimer's, are just inevitable as we get older.
Yeah, that's a really pervasive and, frankly, quite depressing belief for many people.
Totally.
But Professor Lieberman argues strongly against it. Yes, these diseases are more common with age in the Western world, but he connects that strongly to our lifestyle, specifically in activity and diet.
Not just age itself?
Not necessarily caused by age, no. He points to hunter-gatherer populations again, where these conditions are often much, much rarer, even among older individuals.
So it really circles back to how we live.
It really seems to. Lifestyle choices seem to be huge drivers. And this leads him to critique the medical system, calling it kind of backward,
Thanks so.
because it's overwhelmingly focused on treating diseases once they appear rather than preventing them. He cites this statistic, something like only 3% of the U.S. medical budget goes to prevention.
Only 3%.
Wow. Yeah, even though the CDC estimates that maybe 75% of chronic diseases are preventable through lifestyle, it's a massive imbalance.
That is genuinely shocking when you put it like that. Let's zoom in on cancer, because he had specific points there too.
He did. He notes that cancer rates are rising, and they are much higher in wealthier Western societies. He links this partly to energy balance.
Energy balance, meaning
Basically, calories in versus calories out. And specifically, he talks about high insulin levels,
okay,
which often result from diets high in sugar and low levels of physical activity. And here's the kicker. He states that high insulin is actually carcinogenic. It can promote cancer growth.
high insulin,
Mm-hmm.
carcinogenic. I don't think I fully grasped that connection before.
It's a stark point. But then there's the flip side, the protective effect of activity. He highlights research showing women who get just 150 minutes of physical activity a week
Yeah,
can have a 30 to 50% lower lifetime risk of breast cancer. That's huge. And he feels like this isn't nearly well known enough.
30 to 50%. That's incredible. It should be headline news. Okay, let's unpack the sugar-insulin inflammation connection a bit more. That seems central.
Absolutely. So you eat a lot of sugar, your blood glucose spikes, your body releases insulin to deal with it, right? To shuttle that energy away.
Into storage, basically.
Into storage, yeah, as glucose in muscles and liver, but also as fat. Now, when fat cells get too full, they sort of swell up. And that process, that stress on the cells, leads to damage and inflammation, not just locally, but systemically throughout the body.
So excess body fat itself drives inflammation.
Exactly. But here's where exercise comes back in a really cool way. Professor Lieberman explains that exercise acts as an anti-inflammatory.
How did that work?
When your muscles work hard, they produce this molecule called interleukin-6, or IL-6. Now, low levels of IL-6 can actually promote inflammation, paradoxically,
Okay.
but the high levels produced during and after exercise, they have a potent anti-inflammatory effect. It's like your muscles are actively fighting inflammation when you use them.
Wow.
And his evolutionary point is fascinating. He suggests we maybe didn't evolve many other strong anti-inflammatory mechanisms because, historically, prolonged inactivity just wasn't really a thing. Our bodies expect movement.
That evolutionary lens really changes everything, doesn't it? It makes you think about exercise differently.
It completely does.
Yeah.
He emphasizes that exercise as a concept, deliberately going for a run or lifting weights is super modern.
Right. For most human history, activity wasn't optional.
Exactly. It was just life. Hunting, gathering, farming, walking everywhere. It was necessary for survival. He even mentions that some languages literally don't have a word for training or exercise in our sense.
That says a lot.
Yeesh.
What about retirement? He mentioned that too.
Yeah, he sees retirement as this very modern Western thing. And while it has its benefits, it can come with a health cost if it leads to a big drop in physical activity.
Because people stop working, stop moving as much.
Often, yeah. He contrasts that with many traditional cultures where older people, grandparents, stay very active, involved in family life, childcare, foraging, contributing, and that activity benefits their health enormously. It's that use it or lose it principle, really.
Use it or lose it. Applies to our bodies across the lifespan. Okay, let's tackle running. The whole Born to Run, barefoot running stuff. Lots of myths there, too.
Definitely. First, regarding the Tarahumara people from the book Born to Run,
Uh-huh.
he points out that their running is deeply tied to their culture and spirituality. It's not just about being amazing athletes, which the book maybe kind of glossed over.
Ah, okay. Important context. And the big one, running is bad for your knees.
He really pushes back on that
Really?
strongly. Yes, knee injuries are common running injuries, happens to runners. But the idea that running causes arthritis, largely untrue, he says. Cartilage, like muscle and bone, actually benefits from being used, from the loading cycles of running.
So running doesn't wear out your knees.
Not inherently, no. But he does talk about how we run. Modern cushioned shoes. They tend to encourage landing on your heel with a fairly straight leg.
Heel striking.
Right. And that creates a sharp impact force, an impact peak that goes up through your leg, potentially stressing the knee.
Okay, and that's where barefoot running fits in.
Sort of. When you run barefoot or in very minimal shoes, landing hard on your heel hurts, so you naturally tend to shift your landing more towards the midfoot or forefoot.
Which changes the impact.
Yeah, it spreads the landing force out over a longer time, reduces that sharp peak. It's often gentler on the knees. But, and this is a big but,
Oh.
transitioning too quickly puts a ton of new stress on your feet, ankles, and calves. You have to adapt really, really gradually to avoid different kinds of injuries. The main thing, shoe or no shoe, is probably avoiding overstriding landing way out in front of your body with a stiff leg.
Okay, focus on form, not just footwear. So after debunking all these myths, what does Professor Lieberman say is the best kind of exercise?
Well, his answer is refreshingly practical, actually. He basically says the best exercise is whatever you enjoy enough to do regularly.
Simple as that?
Pretty much. Consistency is key. He definitely advocates for variety, mixing cardio, strength training, maybe some high intensity, some low intensity. That's ideal.
Mix is good.
Yeah, but he sees cardio as the real foundation for most of the big health benefits. But fundamentally, find something or some things you like and can stick with. He's not a fan of trying to make exercise too medical, like prescribing an exact dose. It depends on you, your goals, your life.
That feels much less intimidating. Takes the pressure off finding the one perfect routine. Okay, last big area, motivation. It's easy to know this stuff, harder to do it. Any advice there?
Absolutely. And his first point is about compassion. Avoid shame. Don't beat yourself up or let others make you feel bad about not being active enough.
That's important.
Yeah, acknowledge that we're kind of wired for comfort, for conserving energy. That's an evolutionary instinct. So start small. Remember, literally anything is better than nothing.
Tiny steps count.
Totally. He also talks about the brain's reward system. For people who aren't fit, exercise might not trigger that same pleasant dopamine rush initially. It can feel like pure effort.
So it doesn't feel good right away.
Not always, no. It can take time for your brain chemistry to adapt and start associating movement with reward. So you need a bit of patience with yourself.
Okay, patience is key. What else helps?
Social connection. This is a big one for him. We're social creatures. Exercising with friends, joining a group, taking a class like dancing. That social element is a powerful motivator.
Makes it more fun, less like a chore.
Exactly. Accountability helps too. Committing to meet someone, using an app, even workplace programs he mentioned, a company where exercise was basically part of the job. These external structures can really help overcome that initial inertia, like your WhatsApp group idea, right? That kind of accountability.
Yeah, it definitely helps. Wow, this has been, well, it's really reframed a lot of things.
It really has.
So, summing up, it feels like many of these really common health rules we follow, they don't quite match up with our evolutionary past.
Not always, no. The takeaway seems to be less about extreme measures based on myths and more about finding sustainable, enjoyable ways to just move more. Small changes add up.
Right. And hopefully, for you listening, this deep dive gives you a clearer picture, a shortcut to understanding these ideas from Professor Lieberman's perspective without feeling totally overloaded.
Yeah, hopefully it empowers you to make informed choices.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with. What's just one small, doable thing you could try today to weave a little more movement into your life?
Could be taking the stairs, a short walk on your break, trying that activity you've been curious about.
Yeah. Think about maybe nudging yourself away from pure comfort sometimes if that comfort isn't really serving your long-term health. Look for ways to make activity feel necessary, or better yet, find ways to make it actually feel rewarding for you personally. What might that look like?